Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Danita, and I was just sitting at my desk and taking a moment to pause. I often talk about the importance of taking those times throughout the day to pause and just think about what I was thinking about and kind of think about life and I think about the people that I help and what I can do, differently or how to continue to help them along the way. And just thinking about things that are going on, and then my thoughts landed on our nation and the never ending unrest and how it's impacting the people that I serve, the people that I am helping to bring hope and healing. And so I just thought about, again, the never ending racial injustices and the inhumane treatment and the murder and just the inability to catch our breath. And I was planning to come on and do like an educational post. This month is Sexual Trauma Awareness Month. And I did want to provide some education. And I am still going to do that, but my thoughts landed on trauma that is being experienced now as people are observing in secondhand with secondhand trauma, but also those who are in direct, primarily those who are directly being impacted in Minneapolis. And so I decided that I wanted to remain committed to doing my part. I have shared more than once that my part is providing education, especially as it relates to emotional health and how these traumatic experiences affect one's emotional health. And so this is my lane, and I have committed to get in it, stay in it, and hopefully create change in whatever small way that I can. So I wanted to address the question that keeps popping up and has popped up in the past, and that is, why are those people looting their own neighborhoods? And the question, most often on the news and comes from white people, but it also comes from privileged black people who may not necessarily experience the level of trauma that others that look like us do. Um, but the question ends up becoming more of the focus than the actual murder and the actual grief that the communities are experiencing and the families that have been impacted, the grief that they're experiencing. And so, what I want to say is that until people truly understand trauma and trauma response, what we're going to continue to see happening um, is is that people are going to view this as, like our old administration would, a bunch of thugs who are just out of control and just want to take advantage of the moment and rob and destroy. And so, what I would say is that the one accurate thing in that particular mindset is the out of control part. That's very accurate because being out of control is very symptomatic, and it is a response to trauma. And so by definition, trauma begins when an event or an experience completely overwhelms the ability to cope, hijacks all coping mechanisms. And so an individual person's normal coping responses should provide a sense of control, It should provide the feeling of connectedness. One should be able to make meaning out of their situation, out of life, and they should be able to feel safe. Would you not agree that the people of Minneapolis, and of course not just the people of Minneapolis, obviously, um, but for argument's sake, would you not agree that between George Floyd's murder, the pandemic, the loss of jobs due to the pandemic, the loss of loved ones due to the pandemic, everyday life happening, living in areas where there's consistent racial injustice and consistent systemic issues, the trial that is going on now, and all of the other deaths and murders that I don't even, necessarily know about. And now we have Dante Wright. Would that not be a cause for a traumatic response where one would feel, or a group would feel out of control, where they would feel disconnected, where they would find no ability to make meaning? Who could make meaning out of this? Where this would be the ultimate of a lack of safety. And so the body's response to trauma, um, our natural responses to protect yourself. That's a body's natural response to trauma. Protect yourself. And so I can imagine Dante having experienced all that he has experienced over the last all of his life. How about that? Because he's black. I can imagine that he was in was traumatized, living in a state of trauma, and so he didn't really have the ability to process whatever people say it would take to stay alive. So his fight, flight, and some people do freeze, but his response was flight, to get back and jump into that car with the thoughts of, I have to get away and get to safety. He didn't get an opportunity to think with his traumatized brain that my action of jumping into this car is not going to keep me alive. He didn't get to think, this is surely going to have me end up dead. And so fight, flight, and freeze are real. Science backs up those are real traumatic, real responses to trauma. And so when we ask those questions, or when those questions are asked, why all the looting and why are they destroying their own neighborhoods? The answer is that they are having very natural reactions to trauma. They're feeling hopeless. They're feeling helpless. They're feeling completely out of control. They're feeling completely unsafe. They're feeling very disconnected from a society who cares absolutely nothing about them. And so I remember watching a video that Trevor Noah did after the death of George Floyd. And he talked about society, and it was a very interesting point that he made. And he said that, when we think of society, with society comes unwritten norms and rules. And it's kind of like a group of people that have a contract that they will all abide by and live by this these rules. And so he was saying that the powers that be have forced groups of people to sign these contracts that the powers that be refuse to honor. And so, if the powers that be are not honoring the contract, what would make people think that the ones who were forced to sign it are going to honor it? And I just thought that was a very, very interesting take on what we are seeing and the results of these heinous acts, what we're experiencing. And so um, I just wanted to share and just reiterate that when people are traumatized, when a group is traumatized, they just really don't have the ability to do that stop and think and process and hey, I have to shop here tomorrow, or hey, what good is this going to do? Um, and everyone has their level of capacity. So no, not everyone goes out and is out of control and angrily begins to loot stores or riots breaking out. Not everyone, because everyone's capacity to handle trauma is different. But we don't get to define and we don't get to put the levels on and we don't get to say, well, I experienced why, I didn't behave like that. We don't get to define somebody's level of capacity to handle stressors and situations and ongoing issues that they are experiencing. And so I just wanted to share that until people really understand, you just really shouldn't say anything. Just don't speak on topics that you don't really have education about, that you don't have a real understanding about. I am very saddened by these, especially when our people say things like this, because it's said out of ignorance. And I'm not in any way um, excusing or saying that that it is that the behaviors are acceptable. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're not going to have long lasting consequences, but what I am saying is that I understand how the mind and body work. I understand how trauma um, traumatized people behave. And so that's what I just wanted to come on and share. Of course, we continue to pray for our nation, but as our Vice President Kamala Harris said, that this is it's going to take more than prayer. We definitely need justice. We need policy change. We need whatever lane, whatever area you have expertise, get in the lane, stay in the lane, and create change. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I will come back on next week to talk about um, sexual abuse and the trauma that is experienced through through those experiences that people have with sexual abuse. Thank you.